to approve the agenda. We need to add, make a couple of changes. Under the Administrative Services Committee, we're going to ask under information that you add an item C for a contract requiring board notification for Progressive Design Collaborative Limited. And under the Instructional Services Committee, if you would move the revised policy 4240/7312, child abuse, human trafficking, and related threats to child safety, under action, and Ms. Cornetto, the proper motion will be made to change it to a waiver for first read. Given those changes to the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion for that approval from members of the board.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I move we approve the agenda for the August 15th, 2020 Wilson County Board of Education meeting with the two changes.
But that's for August 2022, not 2020.
2022. I didn't say 2022?
Yes, you said 2020.
2022.
2022, yes. It has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that the agenda be approved with the stated changes that were made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, and I'm going to have to make a roll call because Mrs. Boyette is not in attendance. She is with us tonight by Google Meet, but the remainder of the board members are in attendance here in the boardroom. So Mrs. Barnes?
Present.
We're asking for a vote on the agenda approval. Okay, Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer? Mrs. Powell? And myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We're going to ask if Mrs. Barnes would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, the minutes of July 18th, 2022 regular board meeting now stand for approval. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Barnes?
I move that we approve the minutes of July 18, 2020 regular board meeting.
Second.
2020?
2022.
Thank you.
Both of them.
Okay. It has been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Breen, that the minutes of July 18th, 2022 regular board meeting be approved. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Mrs. Barnes, let me do the roll instead of do the aye in the name. Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer? Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Good news presentation. Mrs. Barnes, if you will assist Dr. Mills in that presentation.
Board members, audience members, tonight we're recognizing Miss Martha Levy, if she would come forward. I think I saw her back there. I know she'd rather sit at the back, but it's not allowed. Hey. Yes. Stand with Ms. Barnes so everybody can see you. Let me tell you a little bit about why we're recognizing Ms. Levy tonight. She is being recognized as for her selection as an NC Bold Ambassador. So NC Bold Ambassador is through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and she actually spent the month of July traveling to different school districts in the region, including Wilson County Schools, to lead workshops on digital teaching and learning. So you didn't have much of a summer at all. In the sessions, teachers learn best practices on how to implement technology in ways that create meaningful learning experiences for their students. To be selected as an NC Bold Ambassador, Ms. Levy had to submit a proposal to DPI, and her proposal focused on how teachers can use breakout EDU boxes and Google Forms to design their own breakout activities. We're really proud of you for being selected for this experience. She represented our school system well, and her expertise benefited hundreds of educators. At the NC Bold event held at Hunt High on July 13, there were 200 educators from across the North Central region in attendance. You may have seen her around at Vick Elementary School. Ms. Levy was the media coordinator there this past school year, and earlier this month she transitioned into a role with our technology department as a member of the digital teaching and learning team. So all the things she's been demonstrating, she's going to be doing more of in our school system. We know she's going to be a great fit on that team, given her expertise and experience, and we're glad to have her in that new role. Her former principal, Ms. Annette Faison, is here tonight. She's not mad at us still, but she is here to show her support for Ms. Levy and transition into her new role. So congratulations. We're very proud of you. You gotta get a picture. Yes, yes. Congratulations. It's nice having you here. Madam Chair, board members, that's all for this month.
All right. Thank you so much. That it is indeed good news. Now for the chairman's report. First, let me extend thanks on behalf of the board to the Vesta Auto Group for the 1,010 backpacks that are going to be provided to students within our system. The donation from this and other businesses, along with donations from individuals, have helped make it possible so that students can be better prepared when the school year begins by having needed supplies so that they all can be successful. This is the 11th year that we have had the backpack program, and it is always such a wonderful opportunity to see the smiling faces of the students as they receive their backpacks. We're welcoming all of our employees, teachers, bus drivers, teacher assistants, child nutrition personnel, who will be joining us for the 2022-2023 school year, which is right around the corner. And we wish each of them a very successful year. An extra special greeting is extended to those who will be our first-time or first-year teachers who are joining the Wilson County Schools family. I know that the teachers look forward to the training opportunities on the 24th of this month, which is always a very informative time. And on August the 29th, our school bells will ring again, and for the first time on that first day of school, which is always so exciting. And we wish each of our students and their families a tremendous and successful new school year. And that completes my report, Dr. Mills. It is now Superintendent's report time.
Yes. Madam Chair, board members and audience members, Dr. Fitch has got several items on my list, so I'm going to go through a few things very quickly. But we have concluded our summer launch programs, and I do want to thank all of our staff members who were involved in those. It was a very busy summer with summer programs. Those programs included Summer Scholars, the Read to Achieve program, Bridge, and Accelerator. It was a really great time for us to have the students back in our buildings, and our students learned a lot, and our teachers were very, very busy during this time. And it's probably one of the busiest summers we've had on record with all those programs going on as part of the recovery and just the summer programs that we normally do. So if you see our folks that worked in summer school in any of these programs, please thank them. It was very compressed time period. We are excited to welcome a little more than 50 new teachers, beginning teachers, to our district this week. They will be attending the beginning teacher orientation led by our own Sherry Jernigan. It begins tomorrow and ends Thursday. We're very excited and know they're in good hands with Ms. Jernigan, and we're excited to welcome to our school system and wish them all the best. I know that they're starting to get a feel for setting up their classrooms, and the lay of the land in that first several months are an adjustment for us all, but especially for our beginning teachers. So we're excited to see them come and join our family. As Dr. Fitch said, a week from today, I can't believe the summer and break is over, but all of our staff will return to our traditional schools. Our early colleges have already gotten us going, but our students are prepared to return the following week on August 29th. So the summer has gone by extremely quickly, and I want to thank our staff members again for all the work they're doing to prepare and coming back and being ready to go. It's been a trying couple of years, and we're glad to see everybody come back. It's just it's a good feeling to see familiar faces and new faces as we start the school year, and see everyone back in the buildings. It's a comforting feeling for all of us. We shared the open house and orientation schedule on our district website, wilsonschoolsnc.net, under the district news and on our social media sites. You're also going to get families will get some phone messages from principals with that information, and those events are scheduled for the week of the 22nd of August. We've also shared some more information recently about free and reduced lunch applications in the process for having certain fees waived, such as technology and driver's ed fees. If you remember, we had that conversation, but that information can also be found on our website under district news and our social media sites. Principals have been sharing that information as well. I want to remind families with kindergartners, starting kindergarten is an exciting and sometimes scary time for parents as they're getting used to the process and routine. You don't have to wait until open house or the first day of school to register your child. You can go online to our website and click the enrollment tab to begin the process. You can also call the school and schedule a time to enroll in person. That applies to folks who are new to our district and need to enroll a child in any grade, not just kindergarten. So you can get ahead of that. Operation Backpack has ended, and this was our 11th year. I mean, there's some happy people about it right there. We're very thankful for all the support every year with our goal of collecting 3,000 backpacks. It is important to give a special thanks to Vestra Auto for their group for their donation of 1,000 backpacks. Vestra Auto Group really stepped up. Those were picked up last Thursday and delivered to schools. You've got maintenance and PR are delivering backpacks to schools now. So if you see them carrying around hunched over with multiple backpacks, that's what they're doing. Folks can contact Ms. Lynch or our district website about donation opportunities for that. I think that's something that really sets us apart. And so that process is ongoing and it's gone well. And finally, we do need to talk about, if you will get out your calendars or at least give me some possibilities. I had a meeting with Ms. Steinagel with the county commissioners, county manager, to talk about a meeting with the county commissioners. We need to schedule. If you remember back in February, we talked about having another meeting in the fall, and it is fall for all intents and purposes as we look at our calendars. So sometime in September, October, we need to find a date for about an hour meeting. The Ag Center was a good location when Ms. Steinegger and I were talking. That would be a good location again. So if you can review some dates or anything that's off limits now, Ms. Horson and I can work through your calendars later. Or Ms. Horson can. She's the magician with the calendars to find a date. But the only thing I know that we have is certainly you have your board meeting in September, but also on the 20th, the School Board Association regional meeting is here in town that day. So let me know some possibilities if you want to look, and we can look at some possible dates and send those out, whichever way you'd like to do it. If you know now, there's some times, but we need to go ahead and get that on the calendar. And that would be to catch up on some of the projects and touch base like we said we would do on an ongoing basis, and get ahead of some of the rush before holidays and then again the budget season.
Okay. Everybody have a calendar with them, or do we need to confer with Mrs. Horrison? Okay. Did Mrs. Steinengle give any
No, she
potential
didn't.
dates?
I think that, if we can come up with a handful of dates, then we'll work from that. And if it's just gonna be too much to manage through this process, we can coordinate together and do that. But I thought while we were all here together, just, if you know some things that are absolutely, I'm gone that whole week, that'll speed things up.
Okay,
9/24 is a day that I'm unavailable. We also have the North Carolina Law Conference, or the North Carolina School Board Law Conference the week of the 10th.
All right, so the 20th and the 24th are out. I don't think
are you
we're gonna
talking
do-
about October
Yeah,
for the
October
law
24th.
conference?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's October.
9/20, 10/24. Okay.
I have any time on the 21st through the 23rd of September. And 13th and 14th of September, I'm available.
We want to have it before our board meeting, is that correct? Because that's on the 19th of September.
No, it doesn't have to be before then. I just know that date's there. How is everyone's first week in October look? I know they've got their meeting on that first Monday, but September's probably gonna be crazy with opening school and a lot of opening meeting things, so.
Works for me. First week in October.
First week in October is good for me.
I was just looking, thinking that's probably gonna be a pretty neutral time. They don't have any conferences and everything else. So would you like for me to inquire with Ms. Steinengle about,
A date during that first week?
I
Okay.
know they have their standing meeting, so I know they don't wanna do back-to-back, but it may be like 5th or 6th then, that Wednesday or Thursday.
That will work.
Okay, okay.
I brought my kids last time, you can bring your dog.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
All right.
A lot of noise.
I'm not even going there. Okay,
When's the beekeeper meeting?
stop.
That's a real question. if we're
Okay.
going to the ag
All right. Madam Chair, that's all I had, except for
Okay.
Mr. Breen's beekeeper question. and then I'll
Well,
let you
if,
know
if
answer.
members of the board will tentatively keep October 5th, 6th available,
Yes, ma'am,
then
I'll
that
text her
is a
now.
possibility.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. It is the point on our agenda where the public has an opportunity to give their input. Each person is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation. This portion of the meeting is for the board to hear matters of interest from the public. However, obscene or vulgar statements, personal attacks, and statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or imminently threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. We have 3 persons who have signed up to address the board. The first is Dr. Charles Bayo regarding school policy.
Hey, folks. First of all, I want to thank you for your answers to the questions I've asked over the period of time. As stated in your April 25th response letter, quote, "Written consent is not needed for counselors to counsel students," end quote. Does this mean that the counselor can talk to a child without notifying the parent first? In other words, do the counselors have free rein to counsel the parent's child on what they deem pertinent and appropriate without involving the parent. Stated in your July 18th response letter, quote, "Parents are notified of the right to opt their children out of participating in certain group academic or career guidance services. This includes sexual or sexuality education. Parents are also invited or notified of the right to opt out of personal or social counseling services of a generic nature. Specifically, what steps does a parent have to go through to accomplish this task? Is there a written notice from the parent? If so, is there a form to be filled out? If no form is required, what specifically do you require for the parent to opt out of the program?" Further, in your July response, and I paraphrase this, parents are encouraged to contact school officials if they have questions regarding their children and their educational resources, such as which bathroom their child is using. Unfortunately, this does not answer my question. The main issue to my question, especially for girls and their parents, is specifically, are boys using the girls' bathrooms? If so, in what schools? And are drag queen story hours being planned to be held in the schools? And if so, when? And what schools? Again, your answers to my questions have been very helpful. They have been. My purpose in asking these specific questions is to shine a light on where you stand on these pertinent and consequential issues, then to share them with the community at large. Many times I am directed to the school board policies. Even though the policies generally address my questions, I find they don't answer them completely. My questions are designed to address specific controversial issues that are taking place in schools around the country, issues that have profound and long-lasting effects on the school children in your care, in ways their parents may not be aware of and may not agree with. As you stated in your response letter, it's the parent's responsibility to know exactly what their child is learning in school. Respectfully, it is my opinion that it's your responsibility to be transparent and actively inform the parent of these issues, especially those that are controversial. For this reason, I ask you to address the questions with the intent to be as specific and transparent as possible. Having said that, if you find any of my questions to be inappropriate or unreasonable, please let me know and tell me why. Thank you.
Thank you. Flora Herrera Picasso regarding Casa Azul de Wilson updates.
Good afternoon. My name is Flor Herrera Picasso, and I am the Executive Director of Casa Azul de Wilson. And I'm here today to let you know of some updates from our organization. As of June, we are officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Casa Azul de Wilson is the first and only Latinx-led and Latinx-serving nonprofit ever in the history of Wilson. We have been doing this work for a year and a half, and we hope to continue to grow in outreach and capacity as we try to serve the historically underserved Latinx community. Although we have had 2 large cultural events and provided bilingual college advising for 1 full school year, many people still don't know what Casa Azul is about. So I'm here to tell you a little bit more. Casa Azul de Wilson's mission is to provide a home base for Wilson's Latinx family so that they can feel seen and valued. We hope that with our support, they may own their power and ascend in their educational, leadership, and civic pursuits. We build community through culturally affirming events, programs, and campaigns that allow us to celebrate our complex and diverse identities. We have 4 pillars of work. They are education equity, language justice, cultural events, and civic engagement. We believe that these are the areas where our people needs the most support. We recognize that it is essential to meet the community where they're at. So we hope to be the bridge between resources and the community. So why did we name our nonprofit Casa Azul? Do you know who Frida Kahlo is? She was a globally recognized Mexican artist. She was revolutionary, brave, and resilient. She broke barriers and crossed the limits of social convention to be the artist and woman who represented her own truth, which made her one of the greatest icons in Mexican culture. Her home is a cobalt blue house that is now a museum where intellectuals, creatives, and artists from all over the world travel to be connected. That is what we want to bring to Wilson, a place where our community can just be their authentic selves. So where is Casa Azul? Currently, we do not have an office space, but we are dedicated to work tirelessly until we have a community center of our own. for the community, by the community. We meet with families and students in public places as of now that offer good Wi-Fi, such as the Wilson Public Library, Panera, etc. But one day we will have our own building with where our community can gather for seminars, classes, and cultural events. It is time for Wilson as a whole to acknowledge the Latinx community for the cultural wealth we bring to this town. This is our home. Yes, our parents are immigrants. Yes, our families came long time ago to work on tobacco or sweet potato farms, but we are no longer transient. There are families that have been here for over 3 decades and still feel invisible in Wilson. We have settled here. We are not leaving. We are home. It is time to acknowledge us as such.
Thank you. Elizabeth Herrera regarding 2021-2022 FAFSA numbers and partnerships.
Hola familias de Wilson. Primero quiero anunciar que hay una beca que se llama Golden Door Scholarship abierta para estudiantes que tienen DACA, DPS o son indocumentados con alta necesidad de ayuda financiera para ir a la universidad. Por favor, hagan una cita conmigo para más ayuda. Mi correo electrónico es isa@casaazuldewilson.org o me pueden mandar un mensaje por Instagram or Facebook. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Herrera, and I am the Director of Community Advancement for Casa Azul de Wilson. First, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the 3 recipients of Casa Azul de Wilson's Lo Que Quiero Lo Consigo Scholarship. The 3 recipients were Emily Flores Bravo, who is attending East Carolina University, Fatima Raya, who is attending UNC Greensboro, and Joseph Hernandez, who is attending the University of Alabama. This spring, I would like to drop off physical applications to the school counselors for students to pick up. So I asked for the list of scholarship coordinators at each respective Wilson County high school. I would also like to know how the recipients could be announced at their respective high school awards day. Second, Casa Azul de Wilson had 106 one-on-one appointments with Wilson students and parents to help with the college application process in Spanish this past year. We plan for this number to increase this upcoming year. I want to reiterate that it is crucial for our undocumented and documented seniors to know that they can still go to college after graduation if that is their wish. The Golden Door Scholarship is currently open and the deadline is October 23rd. If teachers know of any students that would meet the criteria, Casa Azul de Wilson could provide extra support. It is also to my understanding that Wilson County Schools will be having 3 new Carolina College Advising Corps advisors. I would like to have their name and their contact information to support them in any way possible, especially with bridging language barriers with the Spanish-speaking families. And lastly, I would like to give a report of Wilson County Schools 2021-2022 FAFSA completion rates. As of July 29th, the completion rates of the graduating class were for Bedingfield 63%, Fike 62%, and Hunt 60%. There weren't any percentages for Watt or WECA, but out of the graduating class, Watt had 14 completions and WECA had 26. I'm available to help Wilson County Schools host Spanish and bilingual FAFSA nights in the fall and spring of this upcoming year. My email is isa@casaazuldewilson.org. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Members of the board, in response to those persons who have addressed the board, what is your directive? 1, to direct the chairman to respond to the concern on behalf of the board. 2, to direct the administration to the concern, to respond to the concern. 3, to refer the matter to a board committee. 4, to refer the matter to the administration. Or 5, to place the matter of concern on the agenda for a future meeting. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell?
to direct administration to respond to the input.
All right. Is that the consent of the board?
I agree.
All right. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, the Administrative Services Committee report, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrative Services Committee met this afternoon, and in attendance included, not necessarily a full list, but was Mr. Boykin, Mr. Breen, Ms. Powell, Dr. Fitch, Dr. Mills, Dr. Williams, Ms. Boyette remotely, Dr. Wilson, and Mr. Stanley, and like I said, and some others. We had 3 information items. The first one being proposed school-age care enrichment program pay scale. And this is for the before-school and after-school care, I think. Dr. Williams, correct me if I'm wrong. And included salary scales or pay scales for site directors, assistants, student assistants, and also substitutes. Keeping in mind that these programs are self-sufficient, and we try to make sure at the end of the year, they not only have paid for themselves, but they also more or less break even for the year. Each of you have been given a pay scale for the first sheet was what they're currently being paid, and then those that have tables are the 22, 23 for site directors, assistants, and student was the third one
Substitutes.
was for after-school care. But they were for the 22, 23 school year. Dr. Williams, anything you think we need to add to that? Feel free. Any of the committee members? Okay. Then we'll go to our second information item, school consolidation update. And Dr. Williams, I will let you take care of that one for me, please.
Yes, sir. Madam Chair, members of the board, we provided an update in the Administrative Services Committee today in regards to the 2 school consolidations, Toys Not Middle School and Winstead Elementary School. In this update, we provided information that the receiving schools are in coordination with our Maintenance and Facilities Department to make sure that rooms that need to be cleared out are cleared out, appropriate amounts of furniture and supplies are being delivered to those schools to accommodate students who'll be arriving from Toys Not and from Winstead. We also shared information in regards to the Transportation Department. Transportation Department has already had adjusted the boundary lines to make sure that the receiving schools incorporated the new students that were going to be coming into those schools. We had some discussion about maintenance and facilities, relocating our technology department to accommodate space at Darden Middle School for receiving students at Darden Middle School. And we also shared information in regards to staff members from Toys Not Middle School and Winstead Elementary School have been reassigned to other schools.
Any questions and comments? Hearing none, let's go to the third information item, which was referenced earlier. This is a contract that's information is provided for information, and it's with Progressive Design Collaborative, and it's for the design services for the 2 chillers that are being installed at Beddingfield, and it's to be paid with ESSER 3 funds and the amount of $34,750. And it's that effort is in conjunction with one of the contracts we'll be approving that requires approval because of the amount. Any comments or questions? Okay. So now our first action item is contracts requiring board approval. And on that one, we had 6. And I tell you what, Dr. Williams, I can do it, but you can do it better.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
First contract was All Red Mechanical Services. It was for the installation of 2 chillers to replace the chiller at Beddingfield High School using ESSER 3 funding. This contract amount was $700,000. Second contract was All Red Mechanical Service for the Forest Hills Middle School HVAC renovations using ESSER 3 funding. That contract amount was $2,792,700. Our third contract was for CPL Architecture Engineering Planning. This was for design fee, engineering fee, and construction administration for the renovation of outdoor athletic bathroom facilities, concession stand, and track, expanding from 6 to 8 lanes for Hunt High School, which was the same scope that is being done at the Bedingfield High School track. And this was not to exceed $170,000. Our fourth contract was Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture. This is for design fee, engineering fee, and construction administration for the construction of Frederick Douglass Elementary School. Contract amount, $1,969,191. Our next contract is Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture, design fee, engineering fee, and construction administration for the construction of security vestibules at Fike High School and Hunt High School, the renovation of the auditoriums at Bedingfield High School, Fike High School, and Hunt High School, and the renovations of the science labs at Bedingfield High School, Fike High School, and Hunt High School. The architecture compensation is based on construction costs, and a table of that percentage was provided to you in your packets for what percentage is for which amount. The last contract is for Utica National Insurance Company, and this is for general liability insurance. This company package renewal policy, Graphic Arts Insurance Company umbrella, and this is a renewal policy. Our current policy ends at the end of August. This policy would be for a renewal starting September 1, and that amount is $151,288.
Any questions or comments?
I got one,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Williamson, and it just kind of hit me because the design portion was added, but, so we just approved for Progressive Design, or we just got presented with the contract for them to design the system for Bedingfield. How is it that All Red Mechanical Services has already bid it before they've designed it?
The PDC had the contracts for our HVAC renovations, which was with our ESSER 3 funding.
Mhm.
They had that was approved, and there was one that was approved in June already as well. This was specifically for the chiller portion, which has to be done before the HVAC upgrades can be done as well.
All right. That
And
works.
also, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? At this point,
Mr. Chair.
yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms. Boyette.
In the packet, for Frederick Douglass Elementary School, there is a page that it's called Program of Spaces, and it talks about the general classrooms, learning commons, the different areas. It has Wilson County Schools in blue and green in the upper right-hand corner, if that helps you find it. If you'll let me know when you have it, or so I can.
Spreadsheet table like page with the school system icon.
He said the spreadsheet table page with the school icon up in the upper right corner? Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
it's right after Exhibit C.
Okay, is everybody there so I can proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. First, are the gym and auditorium going to be torn down, at Frederick Douglass?
I think so, yes.
Yes, ma'am, my understanding is that it would be a rebuild of the whole facility.
Okay. This document that we're looking at, I have, some questions and is this in stone? Did we do this? Is this a Department of Public Instruction document? Let me, help you understand what my questions are. When I look under general classrooms, at AF, and it says general educational support, ESL, literacy, there are only 2 of those, and I think in my mind, that seems low. So I'm wondering, have we conferred with, principals or other schools? So that's one of the questions. And then I look at the next one, and it's called a Learning Commons, and it has 4,000 square feet. I'm trying to understand, what the Learning Commons is exactly, because I note that over in the PE section, which has 2,900 square feet, that's where the stage is. And I'm assuming that would be for assemblies, performances, whatever. But he only has 2,900 square feet where there's the stage, whereas we've got the Learning Commons with 4,000 square feet. So I'm wondering about that. The cafeteria then has 4,000 square feet. So my question here is, if we're tearing down the auditorium and the gym, then these 3 areas are going to replace those for functionality in the school, and I'd like to understand more about how that's going to work. In the visual arts section, B says a kiln room. My question here is related to experience. I know Rock Ridge had to have a kiln room, it was required. I think Lucama had to have a kiln room, it was required. I don't know about Jones, but those all had to have a kiln room. At the time, Tonda Jeffcoat was the art teacher at Rock Ridge, and she was thrilled to have a kiln room because she is an accomplished potter. Every time she tried to use the kiln, however, it would set off all the fire alarms. And after it happened 3 or 4 times and efforts were made to try to figure out the problem, they finally disconnected the kiln and would not allow us to use it because the design didn't have adequate ventilation for the kiln in the kiln room, so it was turned into a storage area. I want to make sure that those issues have been worked out before we're looking at putting kiln rooms. And does anyone ever actually use one anymore? The next area is over in the PE section where I was referencing the 2,900 square feet. I'm assuming that that's inside. It says multi-purpose play area. And since there's a stage and platform, is that indoor or outdoor? And I think that's it. But I don't necessarily want all these answered right now, but if I have these questions, then I'm sure the experts that are in schools have these and more questions. So help me understand, is this a hard and fast document? Is this our document? Is it a document that came from the designer, or help me understand that?
Yes, ma'am, this document did come from the designers, came from the architect. As I understand the process, Ms. Boyette, before the design phase would take place, then input could be given in regards to floor plans and things of that nature. This is an estimate and a calculation of potential space that would be needed and the types of classrooms that would be needed, and specifically the number of students that the school would be built for. But no design process has taken place in terms of official design, architectural drawings, or architectural plans at this point.
Well, I would like to express that we should have some more input from some actual teachers principals, parents that are in schools that have such areas as what works best for for meetings and performances, and especially those about a learning commons and then a stage in a PE or a smaller area, those types of questions. Let's make sure that the school we build is the very best. We get the most for our space for instruction and to help our students.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with those sentiments.
Well, I agree with the sentiments too, because I think all of us want to do what's good for the children. I can't imagine any other thoughts. But and I don't disagree with making sure that we have spaces that are proper for the activities it's intended for. So with this as a starting point, I have no problem with it. But it's, I don't think it's anything that we can't visit at any point we choose to prior to actual construction or agreement on what's going to be constructed. Dr. Mills or Dr. Williams?
I think this is the starting point. Yeah.
I thought it was preliminary, and I was hoping too that we would get a chance to visit it. You know, as Mrs. Boyd said, principals, not necessarily parents, but I feel like the staff there would know best what would work.
Well, also, I don't think that this is the first school or first time they've planned a school, and with a combination of their expertise and experience they've had with other schools and with some input, I don't have a problem with us counting this as a starting point and working from here myself.
I think that as we have built new schools in the past, the teachers have always been consulted as to the space and the utilization of space. I would not see that as any different with Frederick Douglass or any other school in the future, as we are looking so that each of the schools has been customized in accordance with the needs, whether it was a teacher workspace area or other entities. And I feel certain that we would be looking at all of those things as we progress further in the process.
But, and now that the questions have been raised, some time can be spent to look at those things.
I think one discussion the board has had in the past has been that some of the middle schools were built on a template, if you will, for the most recent constructions for those. You remember, in terms of, there was some discussion about reusing that template. And so Jones was something that was built on a framework to allow expansion. But the issue you have with Frederick Douglass is you have an acreage and a land site that's a little bit different. So there's going to have to be some discussion about what that looks like. But at the same time, I think from a starting point, you are going to need to have some conversations about what do you want your template to be if the commissioners are talking about building an additional school as part of your conversation. So there'll be pieces and parts of this design that you could, use in the next model, even though it might be fit to a much different acreage or plot of land than what we would have somewhere else that might be more ideal to building more standardized template model than what we've got right there that's already in place. So I think you have to have these conversations anyway, but because you've talked about how to take this design and I think, Mr. Boykin, you were talking about some of that, could we use something and reuse it next time? So those are all good starting points to have that. So I think that's gonna have to be a part of the discussion too. At least that's what I was hearing you say, is to take this elementary school model and make it something you could build from next time. So again, you're gonna have some unique things for each of the school sites and school populations. But much as you did in the past from an efficiency standpoint and a predictability from the financial standpoint, and from the feedback you got from folks about what worked, and we do know what works for those models, I think now's the time to do that in step for the next several schools. So Yeah, I think you should have that conversation, but not just to unique variations or thoughts for one school, but to broaden it when you do it both ways.
Dr. Nielsen, I was thinking we were gonna have conversations anyway with people to build a top-notch school, because I want it to be a fantastic
Well, I
school,
don't
not
think you
just
can do that
ordinary,
without it. This is just to get the footage to do the pricing.
but-
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're talking about.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, I think the questions raised are very valid questions and gives food for thought as we continue to move forward in considerations. Thank you.
And, now, my next question to the board, do you want to vote on these contracts as a group, or does anyone want to vote on them individually?
I'm fine as a group.
I think a group slate would be fine.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
on behalf of the Administrative Services Committee, I move that we approve the contracts, the 6 contracts with Allred Mechanical Services, CPL Architectural Engineering, Skinner Farlow, Kerwin, and Utica National Insurance Group as stated.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mrs. Powell, that we approve the 6 aforementioned contracts with Allred Mechanical Services, CPL Architectural Engineering Planning, Skinner Farlow Kerwin Architecture, and Utica National Insurance Group as presented by the administration. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think you decided to roll call.
Oh, that's right. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I've gotten in this role of moving right ahead, and I'm
I
forgetting.
understand.
Sorry, Mrs. Boyette. Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mercer?
Yes, ma'am. Our second action item is the needs-based public school capital fund grant application, particularly for the new Frederick Douglass Elementary School. What they've provided us with is a copy of the application, which is the same as the one we'd filled out on a previous occasion. It's not been filled out, but that is the application. And what we're being asked is to direct or allow administration to complete this contract and pursue the grant. Is that pretty well capsulated? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
on behalf of the Administrative Services Committee, I move that we approve the needs-based public school capital fund grant application process to begin and ask administration to manage that.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mr. Boykin, that the board approve the needs-based public school capital fund grant application form for construction of the new Frederick Douglass Elementary School as presented by the administration to be completed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm just trying to be.
I know, I thank you so much, because I'm just ready to roll. Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen? Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell? Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Mercer?
The third and final action item is the 2022-2023 budget resolution. And that we're doing this now because the budget has been approved and as I understand it, we're taking very similar to what we've done in the past and applying it to our new allocations, and allowing for, the adjustments we have to make with local funds to, accommodate and match what the state is doing for state pay. But, for a more precise and, explanation, Dr. Williams, would you?
Yes, sir. In the budget amendments for this meeting this month, state public school funds, which cover instructional programs, support services, and ancillary services, as well as state public school fund allocation, school technology and textbooks. Current expense is in the budget. Instructional program support services and ancillary services, non-program charges. Inside of our current expense budget as well, 3,000 state and federal sources. Mr. Stanley had made note that our federal sources are zero at this point because we're still working with federal monies. Local and other sources, the federal fund for instructional programs, support services, and ancillary services, and non-program charges, and our federal grant allocations. Mr. Stanley also went through in the committee today our capital outlay fund, our child nutrition fund. He did talk a little bit about the trust and agency fund, which is essentially just in holding. It's not money that can be spent until that particular trust and agency fund, whom is going to hold it, is identified. So that money is just there, but it needs to be, it has to be reflected in our budget. Before and after school care program fund and our local special revenue. Some specific points from the budget. In this budget, the highlights from this budget are, it's incorporating the 4% raise locally paid classified employees, or $15 an hour, whichever one is higher. Also incorporates teacher salary increase, average of 4.2%. And due to the increase in salaries, there's also supplements that are increased. Along with the increase in salaries, related items is matching Social Security, which is increased as well. Employer matching, retirements increased from 22.89% to 24.5%. Hospitalization increased from $7,019 to $7,397. Capital projects were also identified today in our capital outlay budget as well. Any questions? Anything I can answer?
Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, Madam Chair.
Yes.
On behalf of the Administrative Service Committee, I move the full board approve the 2022-2023 budget resolution as recommended.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mr. Breen, that the board approve the 2022-2023 budget resolution as presented by the administration. Please respond when your name is called to register your vote. Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer? Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. You did not catch me again.
That's right.
Madam Chair, that completes my report.
Thank you so very much. The next item on the agenda is from the Instructional Services Committee. That committee met this afternoon, and we had several items for information and then those for action. We had contracts requiring board notification. Two of those, these are less than the $90,000 threshold set by policy. The first is behavioral consultation and psychological services. PLLC to provide behavioral consultation, observation, and staff training and other related services not to exceed $80,000, as well as ClassLink, which is an annual subscription that allows access, and this is a renewal, for access to the various platforms used within the school setting in the amount of $39,670. Are there any questions? The next informational item, revised policy 3102, online instruction. There were a couple points made, and this is in regard to remote learning when permitted by law, so that if we have to go to remote learning as we did previously, we would have directives within our policy already set. Are there any questions? We moved the next item to action, so I'll move down to the revised Administrative Regulation 4302R for rules for use of seclusion and restraint in schools. Is there any discussion or question? Both 3102 and this is a first read for 3102, and this will be the only reading of the administrative regulation that does not come back to us. Next was a draft administrative regulation 4334/5035/7345R, use of unmanned aircraft drone. Again, this is an administrative regulation, so it does not come back. If you have any questions at this point or after, please share with the administration. The next was the revised policy 4400, attendance. This is a first read. Are there any questions or comments or inserts to be made? Hearing none, the next was revised policy 6560, also a first read, disposal of surplus property. Any questions, comments, additions? Hearing none, also as a first read is revised policy 8325, daily deposits. This basically changed the amount that is required. It's a first read as well. Any questions or comments? Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes the informational section from this committee. I will turn the meeting over to you because there are items for action that I will be making motions for.
Yes, ma'am.
It's in your corner.
Okay, please continue.
All right. Next, we had contracts requiring board approval. There were two contracts. These are as mandated by board policy, those contracts that are above the $90,000 threshold. The first is Kinetic Physical Therapy and Wellness, which is going to be providing the service of physical, occupational, and speech therapy in an amount not to exceed $100,000. And the second was Public Impact to provide support and professional development for the Opportunity Culture Program that is in place in the amount of $190,000. It is on the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee, Mr. Vice Chair, that the board, and I move that the board approve both contracts that have been stated: kinetic physical therapy and wellness and public impact at the
Second.
amount stated.
A second.
It's been moved and properly second that the full board approve contracts with kinetic physical therapy and wellness and public impact as recommended by administration. Any further comment or questions? Hearing none, please answer with aye or nay. Ms. Barnes, excuse me.
You're doing great. You're doing
Aye.
Did-
great. You're doing great.
Well, I need it.
Sorry.
I appreciate the comment. Ms. Barnes,
Aye.
Ms. Boyette,
Aye.
Mr. Boykin,
Aye.
Mr. Breen, Dr. Fitch,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Records note that it carried unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the revised 2022-2023 early college calendar. It was noted that the change is being requested so that those at our early colleges, Wilson Early College Academy and the Wilson Academy of Applied Technology, would be able to attend the Teaching and Learning Conference on Wednesday, August the 24th, and that the date of August 24th, 2022 will change from an instructional day for them to a mandatory teacher workday. On the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee, I move that the change of August 24th, 2022 from an instructional day to a mandatory teacher workday for the early colleges be approved.
Aye. Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that full board approve the revision to the early college calendar for 2022-2023, where August 24th will be changed from a regular school day to a mandatory teacher workday as recommended. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Barnes,
Aye.
Ms. Boyette,
Aye.
Mr. Boykin,
Aye.
Mr. Breen,
Aye.
Dr. Fitch,
Aye.
Ms. Powell,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Record show it was approved unanimously. Dr. Fitch.
Thank you. Next on the agenda was the revision of the 2022-2023 traditional school calendar. As Election Day stands on November the 8th, 2022, and many of our schools serve as polling places, it is recommended by the administration that November 8th, 2022 change from an instructional day to an optional teacher workday. And at the request of the Instructional Services Committee, I move that the board approve the revised 2022-2023 traditional calendar to reflect November the 8th becoming an optional teacher workday, being changed from an instructional day.
A second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Full board approve the 2022-2023 traditional calendar to show that November the 8th, Election Day, will change from an instructional day to an optional teacher workday, as recommended by administration. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Dr. Fitch?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Record show it passed unanimously.
Thank you. As a second read, it came to us last month for the first reading, is the revised policy 7510, leave. On the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee, Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the revised policy 7510, entitled Leave, be approved as a second read.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the full board approve the revised policy 7510 entitled Leave as a second reading be approved. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen? Dr. Fitch?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Let the record reflect that it passed unanimously.
Revised policy 4240/7312, child abuse, human trafficking, and related threats to child safety, reporting, investigating, and training. Through discussion with the Instructional Services Committee, in order to have information available at the start of the year, as indicated by state statute and State Board of Education regulations. This has been moved to an action item. Mr. Vice Chair, at the behest of the Instructional Services Committee, I move that we waive the second reading of this policy and approve this policy on the first read.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to revise policy 4240/7312, child abuse, human trafficking, and related threats to child safety, reporting, investigating, and training, be waived the first reading and be presented as a second reading. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none. Ms. Barnes?
Aye.
Ms. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen? Dr. Fitch?
Aye.
Ms. Powell?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Let's reflect that it passed unanimously. Dr. Fitch.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is notification from the North Carolina School Boards Association in regards to awards. The annual conference being held November 14th through the 16th in Greensboro. There are 4 awards that nominations are being sought for. The Raleigh Dingman Award, the Champions of Education Award, County Commissioners of the Year Award, and Innovation and Excellence in Public Education Award. Members of the board, what is your pleasure in regard to any of these awards for consideration or nomination to the North Carolina School Boards Association?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I would like to nominate Henry Mercer. And the reason I would like to nominate him for the Raleigh Dingman Award is because he's made significant contributions to the board. He strengthens our board. He's engaged in the community. He visits the classrooms, and he has great leadership qualities. And I would like to nominate him for that. And I also would like to nominate Project Reach for the Excellence in Public Education Award. They actually presented at our last meeting as Restoring Every Absent Child's Hope with Dr. Wanda Dawson and the Project Reach Task Force, because some of their results were fantastic. They had a strong collaboration between school teams and Project Reach teams. They had a bilingual team member to assist with the language barrier among Hispanic families. It was invaluable. Teamwork and collaboration that occurred assisting students and families made the difference when measuring success. Accountability for each student was a vested interest of each team member. A strong communication between school officials and social workers. So that's just a few of the things they've done, and I think I would like to nominate them for that particular award.
I'd second both of those nominations. I already said and on the record that I thought Mr. Mercer was doing a great job during the course of this meeting.
Right? Okay, so
Cheat, maybe, but
so that's 2 out of the 4. Nomination of Henry Mercer for the Raleigh Dingman Award and Project Reach for the Innovation and Excellence in Public Education Award. Was that correct, Mrs. Powell?
That's our Innovation and Excellence in Public Education Award. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
all right.
And even though our county commissioners have already won County Commissioner of the Year award, I think we should nominate them again for their interest in continuing to build and provide capital funds for our schools.
Okay.
Yes.
Why not do the 4th?
And what would you suggest for the Champions of Education Award?
Champions of Education Award. I think that Cindy Proctor with Chick-fil-A has just an outstanding,
Christy Proctor,
what did I say?
Cindy.
Christy.
We'll nominate both of them.
Christy and Crystal.
Christy and Kathy.
Because she has gone above and beyond over the last 11 years with her donations to the backpack giveaway, and I think that she would be a great community member to recognize.
I agree.
I agree with that one, too.
It seems to be a fairly much a consensus with those, if I'm not mistaken. Anything to the contrary? Amber, I think your work's going to be cut out for you. All entries must be received by NCSBA on or before September the 30th, 2022. So you have about 6 weeks in order to accomplish this. So our record will reflect that nominations from this board will go forth to the North Carolina School Boards Association in the following: Henry Mercer for the Raleigh Dingman Award, Project Reach for the Innovation and Excellence in Public Education Award, the County Commissioners for the County Commissioners of the Year Award, and Christy Proctor for the Champions of Education Award. All right? Thank you very much. Amber, I do have the narrative that you need in the directions. Mrs. Barnes?
Madam Chair
Yes.
and Board, I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321, to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G, to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A5, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1.
A3.
A3.
Second as amended.
Okay. It has been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Breen, that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321, to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 United States Code 1232G, to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and/or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A5, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Mrs. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyett?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously, and we are now adjourned to closed session. You thought I was going to forget, Mr. Mercer?